It's time again for Capital City News, your connection to Salt Lake City government. I'm your host, Poonam Kumar. For our interview this week, we'll be talking to the interim police chief about crime statistics and new policing tactics. And our History Minute is about Joe Hill. But first, let's start with our legislative updates. At their latest meeting, the council discussed both naming of the Jordan River Oxbow at 900 South and the general process for naming assets in the city. The council will take action on this item at a later date. The council was also updated on its 2015 priority projects. Discussion centered on what the council hopes will be included in an upcoming economic development master plan, options for city-owned properties, and the scope for research on campaign finance. Mayor Becker and the City Parks and Public Lands Division and community groups rededicated the Lee Charles Miller Bird Refuge and Nature Preserve. The celebration marked the completion of an ambitious stream and trail restoration project in the preserve to repair damage and enhance habitat following the oil spill on Red Butte Creek in 2010. Last year, Salt Lake City's Green Growers program was awarded $50,000 in grant funds to support the development of 2 new community gardens, including the Off-Broadway Community Garden, which was opened with great fanfare last month. For more information on the Green City Growers program, which provides city-owned managed land for the development of community gardens, please visit slcgreen.com. Mayor Ralph Becker and the city's Community and Economic Development Department hosted a kickoff event marking the redevelopment of the historic Northwest Pipeline building and site. The development is another component of the mayor's 5,000 Doors initiative. The initiative is promoting the development, preservation, and support of 5,000 affordable housing units over 5 years and has made significant progress in its first year. The Salt Lake City Library is hosting a series of speakers every Thursday night through September, honoring the nation. The Nation is a magazine founded in 1865, and 7 of its writers will be visiting the city. The first was from writer Mark Hertzgaard, who spoke about his time covering the politics of climate change. Visit the library's website for a full schedule and be sure to check out SLC TV for recordings of all the lectures. Interim Police Chief Mike Brown is here to tell us more about new policing tactics and how they've affected crime rate in the city.
My name is Mike Brown. I'm the Chief of Police, Interim. Recently, the Mayor's Office and the City Council came together and funded 8 social worker positions because we cannot arrest our way out of this situation. I mean, the recidivism rate, putting somebody in jail, the recidivism rate is usually 70%, which is not very good. Someone who gets into a program for addiction or alcohol problems is about 40% the recidivism rate. So it's a drastic difference. And so we recognize that just doing the same thing over and over and over is kind of the definition of insanity. I mean, let's try to fix the problem, not arrest the problem. And so with these social worker positions, the nice thing is they are going to be housed within the police department. They will work for the police department. They will be housed down on the corner of 2nd South and 5th West, and so they will kind of be at ground zero of the problem. And so when we find somebody that needs those type of services or the help, we can take them and hopefully get them aligned with a program or some sort of help that would get them out of the arrest cycle and into some sort of treatment program that would help them get out of the cycle they may be stuck in. About a year ago, the police department went to a Metro Bureau, and what we were finding is during that time, officers were assigned to the Bureau, the Metro Bureau, but then they had to go and take calls for service, patrol calls, maybe to Glendale or Sugar House or to Rose Park. They were being taken out of the area that they needed to be in to take care of the things like the shelter, Pioneer Park, those areas that need some sort of constant staffing. And so in June, when I became the chief, one of the first things we did is we reorganized, and we've now named it the Strategic Deployment Bureau. But within that bureau, we've reconstituted the bike squads. So you have the bike squads that typically and historically have worked the Main Street area, the Pioneer Park area, the shelter area. So they've been reconstituted. They're back in force. The nice thing is they're not call responsive, so they can stay in that area and work on the problems associated with those areas. They also have the DEA task force, the Metro Narcotics Task Force within that same bureau. The undercover narcotics squad, the street crimes squad, the Vice Squad. And so they have the tools to use and deploy within that area or wherever those, I mean, as we put pressure on the Depot District, we knew that crime would move. And it's moved some over to North Temple, some over to 4th South. But as it moves, we have the resources and the flexibility to move with it. Over the last 90 days, we have had many people say we have noticed a huge difference. In fact, I just was sitting over there and I received a phone call from a friend who owns a business down here. And he said he's been down there 32 years. His name is Pete Henderson. And he basically told me on the phone, Mike, I think things are looking much better. And coming from Pete, that is a great compliment to what we're doing and what the city's doing to try to make that area more welcoming to those that would come down to Salt Lake City. I want people to feel like they're very safe and welcome to be down there with their families. It is kind of the gateway to our city. And so we're striving very hard to make that a reality.
And now it's time for our History Minute.
Joe Hillstrom was a labor activist and folk singer who blew into Utah one day in 1913 to work at the mines in Park City. While Hill was in Utah, 2 masked men entered a Salt Lake City grocery store and killed the clerk, John G. Morrison, and his son Arling. One of the assassins was shot, which made Hill a prime suspect when he showed up to a doctor that evening with a bullet wound he said he received in an argument over a woman. A few days later, he was arrested and booked into the Salt Lake jail. Despite a lack of evidence and his continued claims of innocence, Hill was convicted of the murder and sentenced to death by firing squad. His union activity and folk songs, combined with the suspicious nature of his trial, had made his case a national headline. Everyone from President Woodrow Wilson and Helen Keller to the Swedish ambassador and IWW workers from across the country called for Governor Spry to grant Hill a new trial, but the governor refused. On November 19, 1915, at the site of the Utah State Prison in present-day Sugar House Park, Hill was executed by firing squad, dying as a martyr for the cause of labor in the United States. Just before his execution, he wrote to a friend, "Don't waste any time in mourning. Organize."
Organizer, another union organizer, way over in that union burying ground.
That's a wrap on another episode of Capital City News, your connection to Salt Lake City government. Be sure to tune in next time to keep up to date on what's happening in the city. For SLC TV, I'm Poonam Kumar.